I want you to understand before another word passes between us that this did not reach you by accident, and that what I am about to place in your hands is the kind of knowledge the drifting crowd clicks away from because it does not flatter them and it does not let them off the hook. Most men want to be soothed. You are about to be summoned. So here is the truth. The calendar has been hiding from you. As I speak, there remain 183 days in this year. Not a vague rest of the year. Not some time left. 183 countable, spendable, finite days, and every one of them belongs to you outright to be shaped into whatever you have the courage to demand of it. And here is the law I will plant now and prove later. So do not let it slip past you. A man does not need a new year to reinvent his life. He does not need a new city, a new face, or a new set of circumstances. He needs only to take command of a single faculty he already carries inside him and has left idle gathering dust while he waited for permission that was never going to come. I will not give you the whole of it at once. I will walk you into it step by step until you cannot mistake it. But understand this much already. The reason this found you was never so that you could watch it. It found you so that you would obey it. Part 1. The 183 days are the only real state you own. Let me make that number real to you, because numbers spoken aloud have a way of waking a man that vague feelings never do. 183 days. That is what stands between this moment and the close of the year. And I want you to stop thinking of those days the way nearly every man thinks of them, as scraps, as leftovers, as the part of the year that does not really count because the real beginning was back in January and you missed it. That is the drifter's arithmetic, and it has buried more men than poverty ever did. Hear instead what those days actually are. Your brain has been given complete dominion over precisely one thing in this entire universe, the power to think your own thoughts. That is the whole of your kingdom. And flowing out of that single power is your command over the one material asset you own outright, which is your time. Time is the only thing besides thought itself that belongs to you completely. It is the raw material from which every other thing you desire must be fashioned, and right now you are holding 183 days of it in your hands. Open quote. Open quote. I want to pause for a moment and just speak to you, not as a channel, but as a friend, because something happened that I can't let pass by quietly. There are now 300,000 of us here. 300,000 people who decided this little corner of the world was worth their time. When I started, I could never have pictured a number like that. And honestly, it's not the number that gets me. It's the thought of 300,000 real lives, each of you on your own road, choosing to walk a part of it with me. I don't take that lightly for a single second. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I'm grateful for every one of you. Oh, and if you still haven't grabbed the free auto-suggestion sheet, go do that. I really think it could help you. It's down in the description. Close quote. Close quote. Open quote. Open quote. The man who reinvents himself does not wait for a fresh allotment. He looks at the material in his hands, however much or little remains, and he begins to shape it on purpose. The drifter, meanwhile, lets the days shape him. And make no mistake, those days will be shaped into something whether you take up the chisel or not. Idle time is not neutral time. It does not sit politely waiting for you to feel ready. It is being spent every hour on something by someone. And if you are not the one directing it toward your aim, then the current is directing it toward the sea, and you are merely floating. I told you the calendar has been hiding a truth from you, and this is it. There was never a starting line in January that you fell behind. The starting line is wherever you decide to plant it, and it can be planted today as easily as on any first of the year. A man who takes hold of 183 days with a definite purpose will outrun 10 men who had the full 365 and drifted through every one of them. Budget your days, then, so that none of them is wasted, for they are the only real estate you will ever own. And the deed to all 183 of them is in your hand this very moment. Close quote. Close quote. Part 2. Why it found you. Readiness, not accident. Now, let me tell you why I said at the very start that this found you for a reason, because I do not mean it in the soft, mystical way the phrase is usually thrown about. I mean something far more demanding. Let me give you a man and you will see it. There was once a young fellow who arrived at the laboratory of the greatest inventor of his age with nothing at all to recommend him. He did not arrive in comfort. He came riding a freight car, the way a man travels when he has emptied his pockets. He was dusty, unknown, and unremarkable in every way the world measures men. And yet he presented himself and announced to the astonishment of all who heard it that he had come not to beg for work, but to go into business with the great man as his partner. They might well have laughed him out the door. The distance between a penniless off a freight train and the most famous inventor in the world was not a gap. It was an absurdity. But this young man took a humble job sweeping the floors, and he did a thing most men never learn to do. He made himself ready, and then he stayed ready. He did not say to himself after a few months of sweeping, well, what is the use? I'll change my mind and try for a salesman's post somewhere. He said, in effect, I came here to partner with this man, and I will accomplish it if it takes the remainder of my life. And he meant it. He intensified that single desire daily until it had become an all-consuming obsession. And then opportunity came. But notice how it came, because this is the whole lesson. It did not arrive in the form he had imagined, announced by trumpets. It crawled in quietly, disguised as a queer-looking machine that none of the other salesmen wanted to bother with. A dictating device they thought too difficult to sell. Everyone else saw a nuisance. This young man saw the back door he had been waiting beside swung open at last. He sold that machine so well that he was given the contract to distribute it across the entire nation, and out of it grew a business alliance that lasted more than 30 years and made him rich. His name was Edwin C. Barnes, and his partner was Thomas Edison. Here is what I want you to carry out of his story. The psychologists have said, and said correctly, that when a man is truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. Opportunity has a sly habit of slipping in by the back door, and very often it comes disguised as misfortune, or as a task no one else wants, or as a small, unwelcome thing, easy to overlook. This is precisely why so many men fail to recognize the opportunity when it arrives. They were waiting for it to come dressed in finery through the front gate, and it came in work clothes through the back. So when I tell you this, found you for a reason, I am not telling you the universe singled you out by magic. I am telling you something harder and better than that. You reached a point of readiness, some quiet accumulation of dissatisfaction, of wanting, of having tasted enough of the wrong life to know you want a different one. And the thing you were ready for has now appeared. That is not accident. That is law. The only question remaining is whether you will recognize it as Barnes recognized his machine, or whether you will squint at it, find it does not look like what you expected, and let it crawl back out the door you were too proud or too sleepy to guard. Part 3. Reinvention happens in the workshop of the mind. You are ready then, and the opportunity has appeared. But ready for what exactly? And to build what? This is where most men stand frozen, because they imagine that reinvention means waiting around to somehow become someone else, as though a new self might be delivered to the door. It does not work that way, and I will show you where it does work in a place you carry with you every hour, which I have always called the workshop of the mind. Let me give you another man and a kettle. Some 50 years ago, an old country doctor drove his horse into town, slipped quietly into a drugstore by the back door, and began a low, private conversation with the young clerk behind the prescription counter. They talked for more than an hour. Then the doctor went out to his buggy and carried back a large, old-fashioned kettle and a big wooden paddle for stirring it, and set them down in the back of the store. The clerk reached into his pocket, drew out a roll of bills, $500, his entire life savings, and handed it over. In return, the doctor gave him a small slip of paper with a secret formula written upon it, took his money, and drove away glad to have paid off his debts. Now, by every sensible reckoning, that clerk was a fool. He had staked the whole of his savings on a battered kettle, a wooden paddle, and a scrap of paper. But what the clerk had actually purchased was not the kettle. The kettle was incidental. What he had bought was an idea, and to that idea he then added an ingredient of his own that the old doctor had never dreamed of. He added imagination. And from that old kettle there began to pour a fortune greater than anything in the tale of Aladdin's lamp. For the formula on that slip of paper was the beginning of what became one of the most famous beverages in the system world. The doctor sold a kettle for $500. The clerk, by adding imagination to it, built an empire. This is the faculty I want you to understand, because it is the workshop in which all reinvention is actually performed. The imagination is, quite literally, the workshop wherein every plan a man ever creates is fashioned. The desire is the raw impulse, but it is given shape and form and a path to action only through the imaginative faculty. It has been truly said that man can create anything which he can imagine. Ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes, and ideas are the products of imagination, and there is no fixed price upon a sound one. The creator of an idea sets his own price, and if he is wise, he gets it. This faculty works in two ways, and you should know both. In one, you take old materials, the concepts, the experiences, the knowledge you have already gathered, and you arrange them into new combinations. This creates nothing from nothing. It works with what you have lived and learned, which is precisely why the months you thought were wasted are in fact stocked shelves in your workshop. And in the other, deeper way, you reach past your own experience entirely and draw down ideas that seem to arrive from somewhere beyond you. Most men use neither. They let the workshop stand dark and idle and then wonder why their lives produce nothing new. So, hear what reinvention actually is, stripped of all the mist. It is not sitting and waiting to be transformed into another person by forces outside you. It is going into the workshop you already own, and there fashioning a clear, vivid, definite picture of the man you intend to become, and then building toward that picture with the materials in your hands. The hidden genius, the secret dreamer who thinks grand thoughts but never enters the workshop to build. He dies with his fortune still locked inside him, unminted. Do not be that man. The kettle means nothing. The idea you add to it means everything. Part 4. The idea must be driven by burning desire, or it dies. But I must warn you now sternly, because there is a place where nearly every man's reinvention dies in its cradle, and I would not have you die there. A blueprint drawn in the workshop is only a blueprint. A picture of the man you intend to become is only a picture. Neither will build itself. There must be a fire beneath it, and that fire has the oldest name in all my teaching. It is desire, but I mean a particular heat of it. And I must be exact with you, because nearly every man confuses the true thing with its useless counterfeit. Return with me to Barnes for a moment, because his power was never in his idea alone. Many men have ideas. His power was in the temperature of his wanting. When the months dragged on and he was still sweeping floors with no partnership in sight, he did not do the thing the ordinary man does. He did not say, well, what's the use? Now, if you're ready to stop learning and start seeing evidence, I built something for you. It's called the 14-Day Money Magnet Protocol. 14 fun days, one simple ritual a day. And the goal is concrete. Attract your first $100 out of nowhere. And here's my promise. If it doesn't happen, you get your money back. Because $100 isn't the point. It's the proof the law is working for you. Start it at the second-.com/moneymagnet. Second link in the description. I will settle for less. I will try for an ordinary job. This dream was foolish. That sentence, what's the use, is the exact sound a wish makes as it dies. Instead, Barnes held his single purpose and stood behind it until it became an obsession that mowed down every obstacle in its path. That is the difference between a wish and a burning desire. A wish leaves the back door standing open for retreat. A burning desire bolts every door but one. I learned this temperature in my own life, and I will confess it to you, so you do not think I speak from a comfortable height. When the idea of my life's work was first planted in my mind to spend 20 years organizing a philosophy of achievement, it was at first a fragile thing. I had to coax it, nurse it, and entice it to stay alive against a flood of fear and 100 reasonable voices telling me it was a waste of time. But I kept feeding it, and a strange thing happened. The very thing that happens to every idea that is fed with enough desire. Gradually, the idea became a giant under its own power. And then it reversed our roles. It began to coax and nurse and drive me. That is the law of it. First, you give life and action to the idea. Then it takes on a power of its own and sweeps aside all opposition, including your own doubt. Now, bring this back to your 183 days, because here is where the temperature decides everything. 183 days is more than enough time for a burning desire to do its work. Barnes built the foundation of a 30-year fortune from a single fixed aim. And many a man has remade his whole circumstance in far less than half a year once the fire was truly lit. But that same span is nowhere near enough time for a wish, because a wish accomplishes nothing in any span at all. A lukewarm wanting will burn the entire 183 days and leave you exactly where you started. Then blame the shortness of the time. It was never the time that was too short. It was the desire that was too cool. So, I ask you plainly, the picture you have built in the workshop, the man you intend to be by the close of this year, do you merely wish for him, or do you burn for him? Because the deeper mind, the faculty that finally turns the blueprint into the building, does not respond to cold and idle wishing. It responds only to thought made hot with feeling and faith. Light the desire and the idle workshop roars to life. Leave it cold and the finest blueprint ever drawn will yellow on the wall while the days run out. Part 5. Begin now. Reinvent the 183 days into a definite aims. So we arrive at the hour of reckoning. And I will not let you leave it gently, for the kindest thing I can do now is to refuse you a soft exit. Look at what you are holding. It found you because you were ready. That was no accident, but a law, and the opportunity has appeared disguised, perhaps as nothing more than a video you nearly scrolled past. The 183 days are yours, the only real estate you truly own. The workshop of your mind stands open, ready to fashion a clear picture of the man you intend to become. And the desire to drive it is yours to light. Every piece is in your hands. Nothing is missing but the act. So here's the act, and it is smaller than your fear of it. Name the one definite thing you will become by the close of this year. Not a list of vague improvements. One definite aim. Sharp enough to picture. Write it down in a single sentence, for a desire reduced to writing begins its journey from the abstract into the concrete. Then go into the workshop each day and see the finished man clearly. Not as a distant hope, but vividly, as though he were already standing before you. And then decide out loud, with today's date upon it, that you will become him. Not in January. Not when conditions improve. Today, with the date spoken aloud, the way a man signs his name to a thing he means to die before abandoning. And when you make your demand of life, do not beg. I have watched too many men approach their own lives hat in hand, like a beggar hoping to be granted a little something. That is not the posture of a man who is reinvented. When you set your aim before life, demand it, name exactly what you intend, and refuse every substitute for it. Life is a taskmaster. You either master or are mastered by, and there is no halfway point, no compromising place to stand between the two. Either you take command of these 183 days and shape them toward the man in your workshop, or the drift takes command of them and of you. 183 days. I have said it found you for a reason, and now I will tell you the reason one final time. And then the matter passes wholly into your hands, where it has belonged from the first. The reason was never that you should watch it. The reason was that you should obey it. The man you could become by the last day of this year already exists, finished, complete in the workshop of your mind. He is waiting only for you to light the desire, reach the decision, and begin the building. So, do not close this and return to the drift. Go now while the readiness is still upon you and write down the one sentence. Speak the decision aloud with today's date, and then begin to shape the days, all 183 of them, into the man you were made ready to become. It found you for a reason. Now obey it. There is one more thing I must place in your hands before I let you go, and I have held it for the very end on purpose, because it is the law that catches the man who has done everything else right and still fails. You have your 183 days. You have learned that the thing found you because you were ready. You have seen that reinvention is built in the workshop of your own mind, lit by a burning desire, and sealed by a dated decision. And now you will go out full of fire, and you will try to do the whole of it alone. And that, more than fear, more than the late start, more than any other single thing, is what will break you. So hear me on this, because I learned it at great cost to myself. Let me confess that cost first so you understand. I am not lecturing you from a safe distance. After Andrew Carnegie set me upon my life's work, I knew I had been taught by Carnegie himself, and by more than 500 men of great achievement, that noteworthy accomplishment in every walk of life comes through the harmonious coordination of two or more minds working toward a definite end. I understood the principle completely. I could have recited it in my sleep, and yet, for a long and bitter stretch, I neglected to use it. I labored as a lone wolf, trying to carry the entire weight of my purpose on my own single mind. And I was very nearly deprived of my courage and my initiative, entirely bound by the same invisible power that bound millions during the Great Depression. I knew the law of the mastermind, and I failed to appropriate it. Do not repeat my error. It is one thing to be ignorant of a law. It is a far more foolish thing to know it and refuse to use it. So, let me give you the law plainly. The mastermind may be defined as the coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of perfect harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. And here is the hard sentence that follows it. No individual may have great power without availing himself of it. None. I have analyzed the record of every man I could find who built a great fortune and many who built modest ones. And without exception, they employed this principle consciously or unconsciously. Great power is accumulated through no other means. The lone wolf may have brilliance, may have desire, may have a workshop full of fine blueprints, but he does not have power. And power is what turns the blueprint into the building. Consider how plainly nature herself teaches this. A single electric battery yields a certain amount of energy in proportion to the cells it contains. But a group of batteries connected together yields far more than any one of them alone. The human brain functions in just this way. It is a battery of a kind drawing energy and turning thought into force. And when a group of minds are coordinated and made to function in a spirit of true harmony, the increased thought energy created by that alliance becomes available to every single mind in the group. Two minds brought together in harmony do not merely add to one another. They create a third, invisible, intangible force, as though a third mind had entered the room. This is the secret of the power wielded by every man who has ever surrounded himself with other men of brains. You need not take this on my word alone. Look at the man who put the world on wheels. He began his life under the triple handicap of poverty, of little schooling, and of plain ignorance. And within an astonishingly short span, he had mastered all three and made himself one of the richest men in the nation. How? Mark this carefully. His most rapid strides became visible from the time he became the personal friend of the great inventor we spoke of earlier. And his most outstanding achievements began from the time he formed close alliances with several other men of enormous mental capacity. He did not whip poverty and ignorance by the sheer force of his lone mind. He whipped them by allying himself with great minds and absorbing into his own the sum of their intelligence, their experience, and their spiritual force. For there is a law beneath the law, and it is this. A man takes on the nature, the habits, and the very power of thought of those with whom he associates in a spirit of sympathy and harmony. Open quote. Open quote. Before we go deeper, understand this. Napoleon Hill said no desire turns into money until it's repeatedly impressed on the subconscious mind. That repetition has a name, autosuggestion. I've taken the exact daily script the old masters used and put it on a single page for you, completely free. It's called the autosuggestion sheet. Grab it and follow along for the rest of this video. The link is waiting in the description. Close quote. Close quote. Open quote. Open quote. Now turn that law over and look at its dark side, because it cuts both ways and you must see both edges. If a man takes on the nature and the thought power of those he keeps close to him, then the man who surrounds himself with drifters, with the bitter, the idle, the perpetually defeated, that man absorbs their nature into his own mind, as surely as Ford absorbed the genius of his friends. Close quote. Close quote. You cannot soak yourself daily in the company of those who have given up and emerge uninfected. The half year ahead of you will be shaped not only by your own dominant thoughts, but by the dominant thoughts of every mind you allow to press closely against yours. Choose that company, therefore, with the same deliberate care you would give to choosing your own aim for, in a real sense. You are choosing your own aim when you choose the minds around you. And let me strip away the last excuse, the one the lone wolf clings to hardest. He says, "But I do not know enough. I have not the specialized knowledge to build the thing I have imagined." Hear how little that matters. Carnegie himself confessed that he personally knew almost nothing about the technical making of steel and cared to know nothing. The specialized knowledge he required, he simply drew from the men of his mastermind group, the man who put the world on wheels. When a clever lawyer tried to expose him as ignorant by peppering him with factual questions, finally pointed at the man and said, in effect, "I have a row of buttons on my desk, and by pressing the right one, I can summon a man who can answer any question I please." So why should I clutter my mind with general knowledge when I am surrounded by men who supply whatever I require? That, every person in the room understood, was not the answer of an ignorant man, but of an educated one. For any man is truly educated who knows where to obtain knowledge when he needs it and how to organize that knowledge into definite plans of action. The knowledge need not sit inside your own skull. It need only be within your reach. So, if your imagined reinvention demands a skill you do not possess, a knowledge you have not got the time or inclination to master, do not let that stop you for a single one of your 183 days. Bridge the weakness through alliance. Build your mastermind. And let me tell you precisely how, for the building of it has its own discipline. Ally yourself with as many minds as your purpose requires, but choose them with care, taking into your confidence only those who will be in complete sympathy and harmony with your aim. Decide in advance what benefit you will give each of them in return, for no intelligent person will labor indefinitely without some form of compensation, and it need not always be money. Meet with them regularly, once or twice a week, until the plan is perfected. And above all else, maintain perfect harmony among every member. For I tell you, without softening it, the mastermind principle cannot exist where perfect harmony does not prevail. Where harmony breaks, the third invisible mind departs, and you are left with mere men quarreling in a room. It is the rarest and most powerful of achievements to induce even two people to cooperate in true harmony for any length of time, and it is precisely the achievement upon which nearly every great fortune has been founded. And while we speak of plans, let me give you the one piece of organized planning that will save you from despair somewhere in the months ahead. For despair will come and you must be armed against it. When you adopt your first plan and set it marching, you must expect not fear, but expect that it may fail. The first plan often does. The drifter, when his plan fails, takes the failure as proof that the whole aim was foolish and he quits. The man who reinvents himself does no such thing. When the first plan fails, he replaces it with a new one. If the second fails, he replaces it with a third and a fourth and so on, without ever once abandoning the aim itself, until at last he finds a plan that works. Understand the distinction, for your whole year may hang upon it. A sound aim pursued through a faulty plan is not a failure. It is a man who has merely not yet found the right plan. Temporary defeat is never permanent failure unless you accept it as such in your own mind. Change the plan as often as you must. Never change the aim. Now, let me draw the whole of it together so you carry it out as one piece and not as scattered fragments. The thing found you because you were ready, and readiness is law, not luck. The 183 days remaining are the only real estate you own outright, and they will be shaped by you on purpose or by the drift by default. Reinvention is built in the workshop of your own mind, where imagination fashions the clear picture of the man you intend to become. Burning desire, not the lukewarm wish, is the fire that drives the workshop and turns the blueprint into the building. The decision, dated and spoken aloud, is the act that begins it tonight. And this last law is what carries it across the long stretch where lone men break. You ally your single mind with other minds in perfect harmony toward your one definite end. And through that alliance, you gain the power, the knowledge, and the sustaining strength that no solitary man has ever possessed. I told you at the beginning that this did not find you by accident, and that the reason it found you was never that you should watch it, but that you should obey it. I will now tell you the final shape of that obedience. Go and build the picture in your workshop. Light it with a desire, hot enough to burn away every retreat. Write your one definite aim in a single sentence and put today's date upon your decision spoken aloud. And then do not go out alone. Find the minds that will stand with you in harmony and form the alliance that turns a lone man's wish into a powerful man's certainty in 83 days remain. They are enough, more than enough, for a man who is ready, who has lit the fire, who has reached the decision, and who has the wisdom to refuse to carry it alone. You are that man. Or you may become him this very night. So rise and begin. It found you for a reason. Now obey it. Let me make you an offer the old teachers never could. For the price of lunch, I'll walk you through 14 days of the exact auto-suggestion ritual, a daily money decree, the identity work, all of it, to pull your first unexpected $100 into your life. And that $100 isn't the point. It's the proof these teachings actually work. If nothing shows up, you pay nothing. That's the 14-day money magnet protocol. Test this law on your own life. Go to the second link in the description.